My name is Kevin Zhang. I'm an upcycling product designer from Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very clouded city. We have 7 million people living here. With that dense amount of people, we are producing 13,000 tons of solid waste every day, which we simply dump it all in the landfill. Most of our landfill is filling up in 2 or 3 years. We don't really have a solution to it. City people is too busy. It's very common to feel that whenever you throw a waste into a garbage bin, it's no longer their problem. That's the mindset that creating a lot of waste that we throw away every day. When we call it waste material, our material just end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Product designer always work with different material. Waste material or new material, they are just material. The material I use is collect all around the city. It's very different from designing an ordinary product because you can always buy material from factory. But designing an upcycling product, we don't buy material. We only create something when we get the waste material. Upcycling basically means we collect all those waste material. We try to keep all the material characteristic and turn it into something useful. Usually, first step is we look at the properties of the material. For example, the plastic bottle is naturally a great sound box because it has a very sturdy structure, and the internal volume inside is very big. With the handle, it indicates that product is portable, that is almost inviting people to hold that handle and bring it out. In Hong Kong, everyone have a rice cooker at home. When you hit it, it makes a very loud and clear bell sound. That sound inspired me. It's actually been used before, so there's different scratch mark, there's different coating inside. Originally, it's why people throw that away. Once we keep that and turn it into a bell, that becomes the most valuable part. Upcycling is something interesting that you use a similar method of producing product, but when the product comes out, every piece are unique. People can tell what was the material and how it was being used, like the previous life. They have all seen that material before. We are not just selling a product, we're selling a story behind. Once they react to a story, the product becomes more than a product. People can actually tell how much waste can be reused and in a very useful way. So hopefully next time they break something or they want to throw, they can actually willing to spend some more time or some more effort to try to make it something useful again. I think all the big cities have a similar problem. They have a very dense population and they have a gigantic solid waste problem. It's always like eye-opening to go outside of Hong Kong and see this problem is not just ours and is shared by people around the world. By myself, using a tiny portion of waste that originally going to landfill is not solving any problem. It's very important to change the perspective of people on waste because the waste is produced by each one of us. I think every day I just try to do something I don't feel guilty about it. So just a product designer trying to do good.
So for me, the one great way to explain the relationship between upcycling and the circular economy is through the butterfly diagram, right? But another way, and maybe it's simpler to understand, is to understand it via or through the ladder of the circular economy. We still don't know if it's the ladder of the circular economy or if it's the ladder of the zero waste movement, but it is very useful to understand. And in this ladder, how do you read it? Well, first of all, you need to read this ladder from the top to the bottom, from the priorities to the less priority, or the elements and the things that are not very a priority. And in those priorities, in those top 5 priorities, we have one first big part of this ladder, which is to refuse, redesign, rethink, and reduce. Well, why? Because before, and this is why the circular economy is so it's so intense in repeating that circular economy is not recycling and it's not upcycling, because what we need to do first is to refuse and redesign our products. Although we already have too many products and too many materials laying around the planet. So this is also why it is important to keep on the work on upcycling and recycling too. So at the top of the ladder, we have refuse, redesign, rethink, reduce. And at the end of the ladder, we have repurpose, which is similar. The combination between repurpose and recycling gives us a similar idea or a concept that is, which is upcycling. And then at the end, we need to recover materials, like for example in a beach cleanup, right? So yes, this is what I believe makes sense when thinking what is the relationship between upcycling and the circular economy.
My name's Sally Gorkridge-Cowan. I'm a senior lecturer in fashion and textiles at De Montfort University. My practice is based on upcycling agricultural textiles into artworks and installations. The inspiration for artworks have come from being based in a small shed in the heart of Leicestershire countryside in lockdown, and observing nature's life cycles of crops and the lifespan of polypropylene string and agricultural non-biodegradable textiles. The ideas and experimentation process is a very important part of my practice. Creating ideas is both calming and exciting. Installations and artworks are to help communicate a greater awareness of waste and recycling, and raise the importance of countryside challenges through visual and textural responses. Much of the work I make is colourful and vibrant, and creating these creature-like images, which I call trovids, the beauty of the subtle countryside against these monstrous textural creatures.
My name is Sabine Lettmann. I'm a senior lecturer and a fashion design practitioner with my own studio space where I create circular designed collections. Circular design basically means that we consider a different system in which our designs and collections operate. At the moment, the fashion industry is primarily based on linear systems, which refer to taking materials, making garments, and then dispose whatever material we have used at the end of life. And circular design aims to tackle this by creating a closed loop in which materials follow an endless flow. Circular design is important because we need to ensure that we stay within planetary boundaries. We can't keep extracting resources for our designs and products we make, and we need to ensure that whatever materials we use are kept in loop for as long as possible. Circular design doesn't necessarily have a massive impact on my creativity. In fact, it's a challenge which I appreciate a lot. But circular design means that the end of life has to be considered from the very beginning, which has an impact on what kind of materials I work with, what materials I choose, where I source them from, and how I continue to develop my designs in a sense of making sure that I create less waste throughout the design process and develop something that people might want to wear for a very long time. Upcycling is a design method, and as a design method, it's slightly different to developing something where you start with the idea first, because upcycling refers to reusing existing materials such as garments, it could be cut-offs as well. And that means essentially that you've got to compose your garment in a very different way and allow yourself a little bit more flexibility to develop your designs, to ensure that they don't look like patched pieces. Upcycling isn't necessarily just for one-of-a-kind garments, even though often we feel like it requires a very unique process whereby you source just a couple of items that you want to reuse for your design. But there are other examples, such as the Estonian brand Reed Aus, for example, showing us quite impressively how you can upscale upcycling into an industrial level and ensure that you can even produce multiple thousands of items of the same kind. The consumer plays obviously an important role in shifting the industry towards something that's more sustainable, because as consumers, we've got the opportunities to rethink our buying behavior. This means that we should be buying less, we should be buying better, we need to maybe review our textile skills and consider whether we can mend something or repair something. But it also is important that we really reflect on whether we actually need everything that we buy and whether we can contribute with a different, more mindful behavior to less consumption and ensure through this that we stay within planetary boundaries. Thank you for watching.
Redesigning baby strollers for multifunctional purposes. Problem space. Improper disposal of non-biodegradable objects and materials such as baby strollers contributes to environmental pollution. Our design action. The project focused on upcycling baby strollers by reusing parts of found discarded objects to build new models for multifunctional purposes in no-resource communities. Now, let's take a look at the project. It has a base for holding different objects such as carriers and containers in place. It has handles made of bamboo for moving the stroller around, straps for holding containers and carriers in place. with the Nkra symbols to give it an African touch, making it more appealing. Velcro straps for attaching shopping carts for shopping purposes.
Hello, I'm Ashwati. I'm a product designer and researcher from India. My interest lies in working on projects dealing with design activism and future thinking. Upcycling is the process of transforming any product at the end of its currently planned use to a new product that is perceived to be of a greater quality than its current state, thus extending the useful life of its material in a non-raw form. In circular economy, according to the Circular Economy System Diagram by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, there is a continuous flow of materials which stand in contrast to a linear economy. In the technical cycle, products and materials are kept in circulation through processes such as reuse, repair, remanufacture, and recycle. If we look closely in this flow, we see that the flow moves from parts of product manufacturer or service provider to the user. Here, at the manufacturers, there is a resource, and at the user's end, there is a need. And the process in between helps with the productization of this resource. So, if we see this flow in context of upcycling, there can be two types of upcycling innovation. One is resource-led upcycling. Second is need-led upcycling. In resource-led upcycling, the resource dictates the idea and process of upcycling, while in need-led upcycling, users' need dictate the idea and process of upcycling. Scaling of innovation for both these types of upcycling requires different approaches. And we also see that along with the resources, users and their needs play a key role in scaling and upcycling innovation. As a design researcher, I am interested in exploring these dynamics and how we can drive and scale upcycling innovations. Thank you.
Circular design strategies are key to lessening the environmental impact of design. You can see four core circular design strategies you would refer to. We introduced these strategies in Kitchen Fashion Students' concept development and design creation. This time, we will go for more about design for low waste. For fashion, we may use deadstock fabric that is left over from the mill and garment factories, vintage clothing that you repurpose or other unused or waste material. Design for low waste has three categorizations: zero waste, upcycling, reconstruction. Zero waste is a design technique that eliminates textile waste at the design stage. Upcycling is the transformation of materials into products of equal or higher quality. Reconstruction is the process of making new clothes from previously owned garments or preformed finished clothing products. Upcycling is upgrade plus recycling, and it is defined as the creation or modification made to the product before it reaches the end of its life, with efforts to improve the quality or value than the original components. I want to show some fashion brands labels with their innovative upcycling design. The first is Pride Tag. This brand uses chalk traps and fully compostable textile to create bags and accessories. Second, Nicole McLaurin. She is a New-York-based designer. She shows unexpected translations of materials that allow her to highlight the message of sustainability uniquely. For example, she has transformed old volleyballs into slippers and camera bags into a bracelet. I also want to show Justin Mensinger. He used sustainable, recycled, and renewable materials in streetwear, and this ties nowadays very fashion-forward style. His upcycling technique is patchwork, and this was influenced by his grandmother. It is very obvious that upcycling fashion product has more recognized as one of sustainable creation and consumption because of their exclusivity and product value. That is why, as we educators are encouraged to embed the element of sustainable development because of the significant role of university in sustainable development. We provide upcycling workshop and zero-waste pattern cutting technique principles within 12-week state project. As you can see, these are in week 9. The detail of the upcycling workshop is here. Duration is total 3 hours, and first year of university students who are studying fashion participate. And the aim of workshop is to modify a garment in a method that students think their target audience and customer profile would buy into. The first students will modify the garment by twisting, draping, and fitting and modeling onto the stand, but they are not allowed to cut the fabric. Then they start to cut the fabric to modify the shape. And finally, they also modify the garment to the final chosen method that students think their customer would wear or to wear, and they need to photograph and evaluate. One of the techniques students choose is draping, which is allowed to create unexpected shape. The students choose to experiment with trousers, which make a great resources for the length of the fabric to manipulate around the body. But this is also creates some limitations with such a specific length of the fabric, not width. The garment that nearly 1/3 of students choose is egg t-shirts. They all started with altering the neckline, and using the idea of the trim was also popular. The fastening and bow and binding of students also link upcycling to zero waste by incorporating leftover elements of fabric as a trim design detailing. We also find that upcycling workshop was inspired to create a new shape, and this was inspired by final design outcome. And they noticed that fabrications impacted the outcome as they experimented with the garment, and this gave different recreations, not like experimenting with calico.
We embedded upcycling into the fashion design curriculum at key points within the module to challenge and develop the students' understanding of this method of sustainable practice. Once they learnt the basics to create a variety of stretch garments in the sewing workshop and pattern cutting construction techniques, students were equipped with the knowledge to understand the link to upcycling within the design development stage. This opened up opportunities for students to explore stretch through construction and surface design. This flowed through into the final outcome which the students produced, which is very different to other modules that they have took part in. Just to give a little bit of detail of the module, so it was 3 hours for design, 3 hours for construction sessions within 8 weeks. It was for level 5 students, which is the second year at university, focusing on fashion design. The aim was really to develop creative and technical exploration skills, which built upon the students' skills which they'd gained in the first year, to provide professional practice in readiness for the third year, which they can really take forward and develop this skill within their own major project. Key objectives really was focusing on stretch fabrics through research, innovation, experimentation, really looking at the properties and experimenting with this to create a new fit and drape specific to stretch, and looking at how to manufacture these garments through that manipulation, and to really develop their own research whilst working within stretch fabrics. Here's a couple of student outcomes within the module where really you can see that they experimented with upcycled stretch fabrics to create a new look, including a top and a bottom inspired by a sport. A variety of techniques were really explored by students, and as you can see, the outcomes are really diverse and varied. It allowed them to have fun whilst learning and developing a new style that really interested them. Students explored both natural dyeing methods as well as potato printing. They used household objects to really create organic outcomes. Many associate sports and athleisure as bold, bright colours on stretch fabrics. So getting a natural, bold colour was really challenging, which really was a series of trials and errors the students learned. This was something new to the students and provided a variety of ways to change the surface design of a fabric, even though the outcome wasn't always predictable. When it comes to fabric manipulation, students learnt to weave. They layered up leftover discarded fabric and created a new texture. A lot of these techniques took time and effort to create and really added value to the final outcome. It gave it a unique selling point. With draping, they experimented both on the stand and on the mannequin. It was really popular as it allowed students to not be restricted through traditional pattern cutting techniques. It made them utilise what fabric they had and challenged really their method and thought process. These drapes created unique one-off pieces which added a selling point to the final look for the intended audience. Students brought together a variety of skills. They experimented, such as the natural dyeing, where they soon learnt that it was quite troublesome from a quality control point of view. They couldn't get a continued outlook, which was exactly the same. But it worked really well to successfully upcycle independent outfit, a one-off. Patchwork was super popular as it allowed them to control elements of the colour and build up that look within that one upcycled garment. Really, a lot of them used the remnants redundant fabric when making it, which normally it would be just discarded. They used this through embroidery. This particular student embroidered it into the mesh as well as weaving it into the garment, which really kind of explored and experimented with the new surface pattern that she created. Students' feedback was really positive. They described the method as really fun and easy to use. The fact that I don't need to buy anything new is quite exciting. Next time I definitely use a bit of hand embroidery to upcycle my garments. A lot of the students thought that using a fabric would give them time to change the shape of a garment completely into something quite new. Sometimes they didn't always understand it at times, but through trial and error and experimentation, it really brought together new ideas. The upcycling was really embedded in 3 elements, so challenging students' sustainable thinking, creative design, and garment construction. Overall, the fashion students' experience really developed a sustainability ethos within their practice, which they can continue to develop through into their industry, as well as educating students to become socially responsible with knowledge and understanding to equip them to create an improved sustainable future for the fashion industry.
This video has been created by Dr. Hyun Lim, lecturer in fashion design at University of Leeds, Elizabeth Burton, lecturer in fashion design at Birmingham City University. Thank you for listening.
Upcycling is a relatively new term. Probably the first recorded use of the term was in the German newspaper called the Salvo in October 1994. Rainer Pilz, a German furniture and interior designer, was interviewed by the Salvo at that time. During the interview, Rainer said, "Recycling, I call it downcycling. They smash bricks, they smash everything. What we need is upcycling, where all the products are given more value, not less." After Rainer Pilz, Michael Braungart, German chemist, and William McDonough, American architect, were the two people who popularized the term upcycling. Their seminal work, an international bestseller, Cradle to Cradle, Remaking the Way We Make Things, has often been cited to define upcycling in many academic papers. They said, "A technical nutrient is a material or product that is designed to go back into the technical cycle, into the industrial metabolism from which it came. Isolating them from biological nutrients allows them to be upcycled rather than recycled, to retain their high quality in a closed-loop industrial cycle." This became one of the most important schools of thought to inform the development of circular economy. Circular economy literally means an economy based on material circularity. Circular economy is an alternative to the current linear economy of take, make, use, and dispose. And probably one of the most prominent advocates of circular economy is the record-breaking retired English sailor Dame Ellen MacArthur. Ellen MacArthur started this Ellen MacArthur Foundation to promote the circular economy. This is the famous Ellen MacArthur Foundation's circular economy butterfly diagram to explain the circular economy in the best way possible to my knowledge. And the way I see upcycling sits in this diagram is throughout the inner and outer circles of circular economy in the technical material sphere. So we define upcycling as the process of utilizing used or wasted materials, components, and products to create a product of higher quality or value than the compositional elements. Upcycling is also a collective term incorporating creative forms of reuse, repurpose, repair, refurbishment, upgrade, remanufacturing, and recycling. This short video was made by Kyung-eun Sung, a senior lecturer in product design at De Montfort University in Leicester, UK, as a principal investigator for the AHRC-funded International Upcycling Research Network in an attempt to understand the concept of upcycling in relation to the circular economy.